Next, here's my interview with veteran character actor Michael Jayston, whose long and varied career has included appearances in the film Nicholas and Alexandra, playing the last Tsar of the Romanovs opposite Tom Baker's Rasputin, Quiller in the TV series of the same name, and James Bond in the radio adaptation of You Only Live Twice in 1990. He's probably most famous, at least in the circles that concern us today, for playing a character called the Valeyard on TV, the Doctor's nemesis during Colin Baker's last season, who was later revealed to be an evil version of the Doctor himself from the character's far future. Here's an extract from the audio sequel, He Jests at Scars.
What are you doing with my TARDIS, Ellie?
Trying to get a response of some kind out of it. Trying to access a databank. Trying to get into her system files. I couldn't even get the scanner to open.
Experience, my dear child. That's what it needs.
You all right?
No, not really. Again, there are gaps in my memory. Whatever we did this time...
We?
Don't get clever with me, girl. Whatever I did this time, it must have been further back. The effect is worse.
Do you keep a diary?
A what?
A diary? Book? So big? Well, my brother used to keep one. He always noted important dates and things in it.
Yes, thank you. I know what a diary is. And no, I don't. At least I haven't done so for many years.
Well, that's rather the point, isn't it? It's not this you we're trying to find out about. It's the past version of you.
I'll go and see if I can find it. Them.
Them?
Oh, yes, I imagine so.
We're at a Doctor Who convention at a lovely country house in the home counties. So I suppose doing these events, it probably makes it a lot more appealing if it's a nice day and a nice location.
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, it's terrible if it's pouring with rain. But generally you're inside, so it doesn't really matter about the weather, but it's pleasant that you can come out.
How many of these events do you think you've done now?
Oh, I've done a lot up in Manchester. I've done some in Barking. That's the first one I've done out in this part of the country. Mainly Manchester. Oh, and Wales. Wales, and did one in Scotland once, I think.
Do you find it strange that a part that you played on TV nearly 25 years ago still generates so much interest when you've had such an amazing career elsewhere, playing Quiller, playing James Bond on radio and so on?
Well, Doctor Who's got such it's always had a basis of fantastic fans, and it's amazing. I mean, I did mine about 23, 24 years ago. I still get about 3 letters a week. No, I know Tom Baker very well, and Colin Baker, the one who I did it with. He gets many more than that. But I mean, when you think of 23 years ago, and I'm still getting fan letters, as if it only happened yesterday, because youngsters are now watching the DVDs of the things I did all those years ago. And I'm quite proud, and also I am one of the Doctors.
Yes.
If you look on the internet, I am one of they've at last accepted the fact that I'm the evil side of the Doctor. The powers that be try and get out of it by saying, oh yes, well of course he was so-and-so, but I'm one of the Doctors, and I'm proud of that.
Well, you did reprise the role again in 2003 for an Unbound CD, but I always thought it was a great shame that Big Finish didn't bring you back more often, because you are a popular character, and if I may say so, you've got a great voice for radio. Oh,
that's very kind of you, but don't forget, David Warner has done, I think, 2 now. Derek Jacobi did 1. So if I'm in that kind of clientele, I'm not doing too badly. I enjoyed it because I met Bonnie Langford again. I hadn't seen her for years. And she's put on a bit of weight. I used to get worried about her because I thought she was getting too thin. But now she's had a baby. She looks absolutely normal. Gorgeous lady. Nice seeing her. He Jests at Scars, it was called, I think. Yeah.
It's ironic that for a character who travels in time, revisiting this character in a way is a kind of time travel, because you've obviously just appeared on stage and answering questions what it was like to be in a TV show 23 years ago. So mentally you have to travel back to that period.
Oh yes, and I mean I don't understand one or two of the more esoteric questions I get asked, because I don't know anything about the Matrix and certain technical things that go with Doctor Who, and of course they put me right. But no, it's odd. When I did He Jests at Scars, I had to watch the DVD to see what kind of a voice I was using, because it was all those years ago.
Well, I suppose the character's allowed to have aged a bit in the meantime.
Yes, slightly.
As an actor, actually, you must always be kind of revisiting your past because of repeats on TV, because of DVDs. I mean, just the other day, Nicholas and Alexandra was on TV. And so it means, in a way, that you're forever young in the eyes of the audience.
Well, this is a good thing in a way, although it's ridiculous when I watch myself on some of the old televisions because I look like my son. Oh, no, my son doesn't have a beard, but you know what I mean.
And presumably, as years have gone on, younger fans who have seen you in various productions have cast you because they like your voice, they like your appearance. I mean, one example of that springs to mind was I saw at the NFT a few years ago a film called Finisterre, which was kind of an update of an old Richard Burton film about London in the 1950s, while your film was capturing how London is now, and presumably 50 years from now will be seen as some kind of historical document of the current times.
I didn't know Richard Burton had done that. You put me in there. Yes, they're a very fine band, but I had to do it. Absolutely, they wanted me absolutely with no emotion or inflection because they'd heard my voice on something or other. I did two things for them. I did one on a record they did, and I did one on London, which I've heard some of it, and it's surreal dialogue, and I just have to play it absolutely straight, like the policeman has spaghetti on his hat, or things like that, and they know what they're talking about, but I didn't.
One of the guests today that I've also spoken to is Rob Shearman, who's a writer who's worked for radio, for TV, for stage plays, and he says it's different disciplines for each of those media, and each of them kind of feed into each other. Do you find that as well as an actor, that having done radio, it helps with the performance on TV, having done TV, it helps with the performance on film?
Yes, all aspects of radio, television, and should gel, but I get a bit annoyed about some younger actors who are slightly method, because they're so indulgent that they whisper. Now, a proper actor would be able to... you'd hear a whisper in the theatre. There's different ways of whispering. But you get a lot of actors on television, and you'd think, if you were doing a scene with them, you'd say, I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. And they think they're being real. And sometimes they're being real and boring.
And, obviously, you've got a following because of the gravitas that you've put into your roles. But do you find that you've been getting fan mail of your performance as Bond, of your performance as Quiller, or because they're not repeated as much, it's faded in people's minds?
I've never had many letters about Quiller at all, because I don't think it was ever repeated. It wasn't terribly well produced because we couldn't go to certain countries like Guatemala. We finished up in Littlehampton Beach with a few palm trees, and it was supposed to be Guatemala. It was ridiculous because it was pouring with rain, but it made it look good on camera. But no, I still get... I did Rochester in Jane Eyre, and it got received very well when it was DVD'd again about 4 or 5 years ago. And I get letters from sort of 17 and 18-year-olds, and I send them a photograph and say, this is what I look like now. I've changed slightly, raddled and wrinkled.
And having played Rochester, having played Bond, having played a Doctor Who, are there any roles that you still like to do, maybe on radio, because you can be any age on radio up to a certain point?
Not particularly, although I'd like to have a lot of fans of Doctor Who. I've had letters saying, why don't you get back into it, because you were the Valeyard and you were one of the doctors, and I would have liked to have got back into it, but the whole style of it has changed now. It's got more... I like David Tennant immensely because he's a marvellous actor, but I do find that Doctor Who is now getting more sci-fi than the old Doctor Who, but then that's bringing it up with the times. It's got to be like that, and the youngsters seem to like it. My daughter, who's coming up for 24, 25, she adores it. She loved it with David Tennant, and we're looking forward to this new guy as well. He looks right. He looks a bit potty, but I would have cast. You see, I would have cast somebody like Bill Nighy. Would have been interesting, and so would Michael Gambon, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.